Welcome to the Vibrant Health Podcast with your hosts, Lydia and Jessica Espinoza. Lydia is a nutritional therapist and founder of Divine Health from the Inside Out. Jessica is a real food wellness educator and founder of the website, DeliciousObsessions.com. Since this is a health-related podcast, it should be noted that the hosts are not licensed medical professionals. The information and advice provided in this podcast is not intended to diagnose, treat, or prescribe for any illness or health issue and should not be construed as medical advice. And now, here are the hosts of Vibrant Health Podcast, Lydia Shatney and Jessica Espinoza.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to episode number 27 of the Vibrant Health Podcast. I am Jessica from DeliciousObsessions.com and JessicaEspinoza.com, and I'm here with my co-host, Lydia of Divine Health from the Inside Out.com. Today, we're going to talk about one of our favorite topics, and specifically about healing the adrenals. So we've covered adrenal health a number of times on this podcast. I think adrenal health kind of works its way into almost every podcast we do just because it's so intertwined into all aspects of our health in general. But if you want more information about the very basics of adrenal fatigue, what it is, and kind of some of the ways the adrenals play into your overall health, check out episodes number 3, 9, and 19 for more information. We'll also link those down below in the show notes. But today we want to specifically talk about kind of the symptoms of adrenal exhaustion or insufficiency, and then also really focus on things that we can do to heal the adrenals, lifestyle changes, etc. So let's go ahead and dive right in. Lydia, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great.
Good.
Doing
Talk
good.
About one of our favorite topics.
Yeah. Well, it's so important. I don't like to isolate parts of the body or anything, but these wonderful glands we have been given are so in such sad state anymore. And people are constantly like, how do I know if I have adrenal fatigue? And what does that mean? And, they want like some diagnosis about their adrenal health. So, let's just all assume we have some level of adrenal inadequacy today. And today we're just going to kind of go over the basics. First, I want to just kind of share some of the basic signs that you do. If you have some struggle with those glands and the actual exhaustion syndrome that goes with it. So, we can have hypofunction or hyperfunction. So our adrenals can be overacting and they can still be kind of exhausted, and they can be underacting. And there's a lot of symptoms that correlate with dysfunction there. So a lot of it will have to do with your sleep. So if you tend to be a night person and you kind of get like a second wind, that's dysregulated cortisol usually. But, night people have some issues there. Difficulty falling asleep, slow starter in the morning. If your whole circadian rhythm is screwed up, you've got some likelihood that the adrenals are playing a role there. Circadian rhythm is basically your body's clock. Our body is supposed to kind of have certain amount of energy throughout the day, and it kind of wanes, and, we're supposed to sleep, somewhere a couple hours after the sun goes down and, wake up with the sun and that kind of thing. And when we're off that clock and it's not, falling into line there, our body's rhythm goes off, and a lot of it has to do with this one gland in particular is out of tune, let's call it. Then you can have people who have a tendency to be really keyed up and they can't calm down, and they're just kind of like, people with high blood pressure, people with low blood pressure. If you get a headache after exercising, some people can't handle caffeine at all and they feel wired or jittery. That's a telling thing there. Another thing that's kind of interesting is teeth grinding or clenching. That's a whole interesting topic, and I think we actually are going to cover that a little bit at some point when we talk to one of our guests who knows more about oral health. Then we have calm on the outside or troubled on the inside. Chronic low back pain, especially when you're under fatigue or stress. Dizziness when you stand up quickly, that's a classic of adrenal exhaustion. People who cannot hold on to a chiropractic adjustment and have to go in constantly. People who get adjusted and then they have a lot of pain after that. And the adrenals actually hold us together too. You know, our whole core, they kind of really play into that. Arthritic tendencies, craving salty foods, that's a classic.
Uh-huh.
I was like, oh my gosh, I eat so much salt, I can't get enough. Well, yep, you're low in sodium and your adrenals are tired. If you easily perspire, that's like the opposite. That's the faster adrenal activity. Chronic fatigue, drowsy all the time, afternoon yawning, afternoon headache. Asthma, wheezing, difficulty breathing is another one. Even things like knee pain, or if you have like a tendency to get shin splints. Allergies or hives, weakness, dizziness. So those are all kind of really clear symptoms and signs that you have some imbalance going on there. There's more stuff than that, but that's just the most really obvious glaring signs.
It really shows how important the adrenal glands are because, I mean, you're looking at symptoms that are affecting a whole wide range of the body, essentially like every place of the body. Some of the chiropractic stuff and the knee pain and the shin splints and stuff, that was kind of new symptoms to me. And so you really see just how critical the adrenals are to our overall health. It's not just their energy, and it's not just, helping the thyroid and things like that. I mean, it could be a whole wide range of things that get out of kilter whenever your adrenals are suffering. So
right. Well, they influence all the major physiological processes in the whole body.
Mhm. It's amazing. Absolutely amazing. So let's dive into like our core area for today's talk. So which we want to talk about how you can support and heal the adrenals. But let's talk a little bit about what leads to weak adrenal gland activity in the first place.
Right. So let's say you don't have a lot of those symptoms I just shared, and you've maybe even gotten a adrenal salivary index done, and your cortisol and DHEA rhythm and hormone production is totally fine. I've seen this before. Nobody has it perfect, but let's say it is, okay?
Mm-hmm.
You still can have weak adrenals, okay? And basically what diminished weak adrenal gland activity can be as a result of is, chronic stress, that's obvious, and that would probably result in more of those symptoms I shared, but also toxic metals. So let's say you had weak adrenals and then you started to improve and your hormones seem to be fine. You still can have issues with toxic metals because that's not an easy quick fix at all. And, that's a whole big ball of wax. It takes years to really get the bulk of them out purposely. Then nutrient deficiencies. Some people have a lot more need for certain B vitamins that they're just not getting enough of. Then we've got mindset situations, or life situations you might be in where you just feel trapped, or you've got issues with anxiety, fear, mental shifts that need to happen that aren't happening can really affect how your adrenals heal, but also can be just like a pattern in your life, maybe even from your parents or something that you can't break out of that leads to those glands getting really tired from that stress, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then there's gut infections, parasites, food sensitivities, environmental toxins, which we can't avoid entirely, right? We can start to try. And then you've got people who literally just push too hard and they do too much, which we all do to some degree, right? And then if you're not sleeping well, if you have any length of time in your life where your sleep is just totally disrupted, that's really going to lead to weak adrenals. Mamas who had all the babies and, spent many years of their life, waking up with them, and that can just take some time to really recover from chronic pain or other stress-related factors, But this diminished adrenal gland activity can contribute to symptoms of fatigue, exhaustion, depression, mood swings, PMS, menopausal symptoms in women. we're supposed to kind of gracefully go through menopause. We are not supposed to have these dramatic symptoms that are, quote, they're common. They're not normal. They're common. So weak adrenal gland activity, again, so let's say whatever has led to your weak adrenal gland activity and you have it, it's going to contribute to some degree to your body accumulating heavy metals. Because when you have the glands are weak, your normal detoxification mechanisms and processes become impaired. Mm-hmm. And so the body actually will compensate for this by retaining, maybe copper and other things like iron, manganese, aluminum, chromium, lead, arsenic. Some of them will go into enzyme binding sites because the minerals aren't there and they'll do a job. So, we can end up kind of holding on to all this stuff, and then we can have that heavy metal toxicity, and we need to deal with it. So that piece is a trickier one to recover from, but it's a big part of it all. So yeah, that's just kind of that's just a little bit of information on, the gland being weak itself at the cellular level. So you can have perfectly fine hormone, but you can still at the cellular level not have effective glandular activity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's important to note because a lot of people will get their results back and maybe their hormones all look great on paper, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you're healthy, and that doesn't mean that everything's functioning properly, especially if, you look good on paper and you're still having symptoms or, maybe there's just some lingering issues. That's when you have to really start digging a little bit deeper and not just go by what your paper is showing.
Right.
So let's talk about the support for healing the adrenals. I think we have like 10 or 12 things that we wanted to go through specifically. And these are things that we can kind of implement into our life. And these alone should help make a big difference in our health. So let's kind of dive into that aspect of it.
Yeah, totally. So a lot of this stuff we're about to share is basic for overall health in general. Because remember, these two glands affect all of our our whole health. So the first one, and I think, I feel like we've talked about this before, but it's worth repeating because it's not everybody, is really doing this piece, and it's to get adequate sleep. And I kind of touched on that whole time clock our body's supposed to run on. This is called our circadian rhythm. And I know we all kind of have the different times and different sunset times and all this kind of stuff. But generally speaking, we want to get to bed before this adrenal hour of 11 p.m. to 1 a.m., kind of generally speaking. So we want to get to sleep well before that so we actually can have a chance for those glands to restore during that time. So it's good to be solidly asleep before that hour. So if you're like somebody who stays up till 1 a.m. all the time, you're really going to need to rethink that. I know people don't want to hear it, but it's true. Just try it.
Right.
And tell me I'm wrong. But so 10 p.m. is a great goal, 10:30. If you're doing pretty good with that and you have the occasional late night, which we all are going to, it won't affect you as much. But if you're literally not ever getting to bed even remotely close to then, you want to try to start eking it 30 minutes sooner and 30 minutes sooner until you're kind of hanging out at this nice bedtime or no later than 10:30.
I'm glad that you mentioned that of doing it in increments because that actually came up in the discussion that I had just this week, actually, of people saying that, I stay up until midnight or I stay up until 1. And I try to be in bed. I'm not always good about it, but I try to be in bed by 9 to 9:30 at the latest. And some people look at me, they're like, how can you go to bed so early? And I have to tell them I didn't used to go to bed so early. I used to be one of those people that stayed up really late. And then I started like 15 minutes to 30 minutes. I just started kind of working down a little bit. And now my body is trained. You can retrain your body, like just because it might seem unrealistic now to shave off, 3 hours of your night and go to bed earlier. You can do it, but do it in little increments so that you're just kind of retraining your body for a new habit. You don't have to go from 1 a.m. all of a sudden you're going to start going to bed at 9 because your body's going to be like, no. So
yeah.
You have to retrain your body when it comes to this.
Right. Yeah, it's definitely a process, but and but then you hear the people who are like, well, but I don't get my kids to bed until like almost 9, and then I want time for myself, and there's so much left to do, and and I'm thinking, well, if you get to bed and you wake up refreshed, you're going to have better energy throughout your day to get these things done, and you might want to rethink your kids' bedtime and rethink your whole evening structure. If you're someone who's struggling in the morning and then the rest of the day is a struggle because of it, just changing the bedtime alone is going to make a huge difference in your entire day. Mm-hmm. So, and I don't want anyone to make the good, be what's that phrase? That try to be perfect about this, and then make good be like not good enough. What is that phrase? I always forget it when I need it.
I know, I always forget too.
Don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good, Yes. I think that's what it is. And so you get all in your head and yada, yada. Just listen. You want to make baby step changes for yourself because in the long run, this is going to benefit you, even if in your mind you're like, how can I do this? So parents, this is the one I hear the most. Oh, but the kids and blah, blah, blah. Listen, there's always ways to start tweaking to make this situation better for you and your family. And, I do it. It's been a habit for a long time because I just made it a priority. And now it's like, just not difficult anymore. It's easy. Mm-hmm. It wasn't easy at first, let me tell you. But it got to be rote for us. So, and not everybody needs to go to bed by 9 or 9:30 like you are, because that's not realistic.
Well, I do that because my husband's alarm goes off at 5:30.
You got to get up early. Yeah. So, do what you need to do for your family, but try to get it better so that your long-term health and your family's health doesn't suffer. And then, with that said, and we don't value rest. We just don't value sleep and rest. No. We don't understand how restorative it is to the body. And because so many people have insomnia and we're just go, 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 and we're so stimulated by so many things, we just don't value it the way we should. So we need to kind of understand that it's just, it's not negotiable. It really isn't. In order to survive, we have to get that sleep. Otherwise, you're going to rely on your energy glands for energy, and if they're already weak and tired, you're going to burn out.
Yeah.
And then with that said, since we don't value this in general, we don't also know how to relax. We don't think that's valuable either as a culture, really. So that's the next thing is take time daily to find whatever technique works for you to get some restoration through a little bit of relaxation time, a little bit of something to help you unwind, hopefully not going to the bar for happy hour because, that's not going to really help you in the long run either. Hey, I totally will have a drink now and then. I'm not against the occasional, but that's a habit that's leading you nowhere. So just learn some things that benefit your health. It doesn't have to be much. Like you've got moms who are home with toddlers all day and they literally have to be on for that kid, right? They need time where they can just chill. Maybe the end of the day they take a bath, or maybe when the kid's napping, instead of running around doing all the chores, they actually take a few minutes for themselves. Or, if you have a really busy job and you have a very demanding schedule, you want to find the time of the week where you really get to have downtime and kind of like unload from all that. Some people can just do something like a little bit of a yoga practice every day, or before bed, listen to some kind of gentle music or read a book. But some people may need more than that. They might need to learn some techniques that really, because you've got people who are more driven, that don't tend to allow that. They may want to take up some type of meditation or, biofeedback or something. For me, often it's just nature therapy. I go outside or spend some time in nature, and that can be very refreshing. So it can be anything that you just kind of allow everything else to just go by the wayside for a few minutes and just refresh yourself.
Yep.
What's your favorite relaxation?
I'm actually, I do my yoga for the most part every morning. I've gotten better about deep breathing, but I actually just started doing meditation, which I've tried meditation in the past and it just really hasn't worked. But my subscription service through Xfinity, I subscribe to their like Gaiam Fit and Yoga TV, and they have a bunch of meditation videos on there. And there was a couple that are only like 5 or 6 minutes. And so I usually do my yoga in the morning, and then I do one of the 5 or 6 minute meditation. And it's usually just guided meditation, and I just sit there and I focus on my breath, and I focus on that 5 minutes of just breathing. And that really has been helping me a lot, more than I expected. And meditation, that could be a whole separate podcast, because there's actually science now that's showing that it changes your DNA. It's so powerful with what it can do for your body. So, and it doesn't have to, I'm doing like 5 minutes because I'm one of those people that I feel like I just don't have time to do everything that I need to do. So, but 5 minutes, we can do 5 minutes. Even if you have to go like sit in the bathroom for 5 minutes, you can do it. So, yeah. And then being outside, I live in the city now, but I go up to see my parents. They live up in the mountains, and I really, I need to do more nature therapy, and walking around barefoot and stuff like that is really great. So, yeah, all of that stuff is good.
Yeah, there's a list a mile long. So, find something that you feel really relaxed doing, whatever it is.
And something that you almost crave, that you really get a lot of joy out of doing it, and it doesn't feel like it's a burden, or because if you feel resentful towards it at all, then it's not the right thing, and that's going to create some other problems. So you want it to be something that you like to do and that you look forward to doing, so that 1 minute, if it's just 1 minute of deep breathing, you look forward to that and you do get the benefits from it. It's not something that you feel like, oh, I just have to do this one more thing today.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yep. It has to be a joy, and it's something you definitely enjoy as well, not tedious.
Absolutely.
Well, then with that said, another kind of thing that I don't think we do well in this culture is allow ourselves to be nurtured. So, and accept ourselves. This is this like, what? How do I fully accept myself? It sounds all great and wonderful, but shoot, I sure don't know how. And laughing. So this is just kind of like, kind of coming into loving yourself, really, just being free to be 100% happy with who you are, which, we all have our moments where we're like going to nitpick about ourselves. But some of us grew up just like really hating ourselves for whatever reason. What are the belief systems behind that have caused you to get to that place, And that's not something we need to spend a lot of time on. But if you feel like you really struggle to just laugh and allow people to care for you, like some people just, you offer to help them and offer to help them and offer to help them, like, oh, I'm fine. And it's like, why don't you let people help you? That's not, they don't have the ability to receive that nurturing and care that we all want to give, and we all should be able to receive as well. It's kind of, how it's supposed to work. So if you're someone who does not receive well from others, that's something to think about, and maybe within this specific section here, what I'm talking about could really require some type of coaching, or, maybe working with someone to help you if this is a real struggle for you. So that's something too, because that will really totally affect your overall health in a big way. So that's pretty big too.
Absolutely.
Now, the next one we did a whole podcast about, so we won't go into this too much, but it's just getting the right exercise. So if you have weak glands, exhausted glands, you don't want to drive them further into the ground by, pushing yourself really hard, depleting your mineral stores, and crashing your adrenals. So heavy exercise, massive cardio can really do a number on you. I mean, you may do okay with it for a while, but you could be a sitting duck for a crash. And I've seen it time and time again. It happened to me. And I can't emphasize this enough. So check out our podcast about the yoga for healing, which is wonderful because you cover your meditation and your movement all in one fell swoop. So that's a pretty awesome program that anybody can do. It's wonderful.
Yeah, that was episode number 24. And then way back, I think episode number 9 was the proper exercise for adrenal fatigue. That was a really good episode where we go in depth about the types of exercise you should do and what you should avoid and how to care for yourself.
That one can be tough. Yeah, that one can be tough for people because people, what they don't realize is they often may use exercise to stimulate them because they're really underneath, they're tired. So, and that's tough because people fall in love with their workouts because it pumps them up so much. And that Tara actually went really into that in the Yoga for Healing podcast, and she really addressed that well. So I would highly recommend listening to that if you're that person who's really loving that heavy, hard working out, but your body just is like, can't
do it.
So we are not superheroes or invincible here, people. We are just, we're really, and we're not weaklings either, but there is a definite balance. So check that stuff out. Next is sunshine therapy or light. We actually need natural light for healthy adrenal function. I don't know about you, but when it's sunny out, I'm like, la la la, happy. And then I can be totally fine. The next day, wake up, it's dark, and I'm just kind of like, bleh.
Right.
And it's a little harder to be motivated and perky. So, we do need the sun and we do need light. So if you live in a climate where you are in darkness a lot, you may want to get some full spectrum lights to kind of just really help. And whenever you can get some sun, go outside, get it on your skin. That's a good thing to really try to just remember.
Yep.
Doesn't take much. Clean up your diet. I mean, that should be obvious. We need nutrients to help those glands be healthy, and we need to avoid any toxicity. So if we're eating really crappy food, it's a double whammy,
Right.
I'm not sure. That one should be really obvious. And then if you have known food allergies or trigger foods, you really want to try to avoid them. You don't want to just suck it up and, I can deal with the symptoms,
Mm-hmm.
You're not doing those glands any favors by doing that. So keep that in mind if you really want to feel the benefit of healthy glands and overall health. Do your best to avoid those things. My next one is kind of tied into diet, and I don't recommend doing extreme diets, detox diets. This might get a little dicey, but even something like a ketosis diet, which I know is really popular right now, there's some evidence of its benefits and all this stuff. But, it can really crash the adrenal glands because it's a very extreme. You're restricting, starches in the diet, which are quick burning fuel for those glands that are so tired. We need quick energy, and we can't rely on energy from those glands, so we've got to get it from our food. And sometimes overdoing certain macronutrients at the expense of others can be very problematic for people.
Mm-hmm.
And then something like a really strict elemental diet, like you've got people who have gut infections or bacterial infections, and they do these really strict diets to relieve those symptoms, they can really crash their adrenal glands. And so it's tricky because they want to feel better from this one thing, but then, the body takes a hit in another area. So there are ways to approach this. Some people are just so sick they may have to do something extreme, but most of us don't. And there's definitely a way to take a more broad approach that's not so extreme.
Mm-hmm.
That's just a real aside for any of you out there who are listening who maybe, feel like, I got to do some detox. I got to do something radical. I got to, that's your body saying, hey, I want to heal and clean up, but you don't have to be radical about it. You can just keep taking steps towards better and better habits, and in time your body's going to start to get this nice foundation. So I've seen numerous people just come in totally tanked from stuff like this, and it's really sad because they're trying to do something to help themselves, and then they end up having more problems. So, I would just say if you want to do anything like that, you really should be working on your adrenal health before that and during that, and maybe get some support.
Yep, I agree.
So our next one, Jessica, you're an expert in because We just went through this, right?
Yeah,
so
still kind of going through it.
This is something that's probably worth a whole nother podcast, and I don't want to do too much talking about it to save time, but if you have amalgams and you are considering getting them removed, please...
Which are the metal fillings. For people that don't know, the amalgam fillings are the mercury metal fillings that we all had when we were kids. So...
So if you have mercury fillings in your mouth and you've heard it's bad, mercury's bad, I need to get these out, blah, 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 please don't just rush out to get them out. Even if you have a wonderfully biologically trained dentist who knows the safest way to do it, it still can really be hard on your body. I have seen so many people totally get wrecked from this process. So if you have no clue what's going on with your adrenals, you need to spend some good time really healing before you consider this process. Now, I do understand there are times when people have cracked teeth or loose fillings or whatever, and that's a whole other thing. If your fillings are intact and you don't have any structural issues or whatever, I would say hold off.
Yep,
and
I agree.
Go through some support with somebody who can rebuild and restore your body, especially focusing on your adrenals and your minerals. So that's just a warning, because I've seen it happen so many times. Jessica struggled this year, although she was very supported, but she could have been a lot worse, I bet.
Yeah, it really could have been. And I was one of those people that I had to get them fixed because they were at the point where they were actually starting to crack my teeth. And so, we wanted to avoid that because that was probably going to lead to the need for a root canal extraction, and I just don't even want to go down that path. So,
or losing a filling, and that's really risky. We don't want that either. So, so in your case, it was necessary, but the good news was you had been really focused on recovering your health, and so it was, it worked out okay.
It could have
for the most part.
Worse. I've heard some horror stories, though. I mean, I've gotten actually because I have videos on YouTube where I talk about the process and what I did before and how I was feeling after, and it's I've gotten a lot of emails from people who have experienced either they didn't go to a properly trained dentist or they experienced some really, really catastrophic side effects. And I don't say that to scare people. I say that I want to emphasize that if you do decide to do this, you, definitely need to make sure that you are supporting your adrenals and your body as a whole. You need to also research everything thoroughly and be prepared for you to potentially have a crash or have some side effects from it. Some people feel excellent. Other people can crash. I've seen crashes. Mine I would consider mild to moderate in comparison with some of them, but I've seen some pretty catastrophic things happen to people. So you don't know until it happens. There is no way to predict how your body is going to react. So it definitely, it's important. I think it is important to get them removed, but it has to happen when your body and you are ready for that removal. It can't be something that you just decide to do on a whim.
Yeah, people are so flip about this too. I've had people be like, oh, by the way, I'm getting my mercury fillings out in 2 weeks. What can I do? Can you give me a protocol? And I'm like,
much more than that.
no, I can't really help you enough adequately. Yeah. And the other thing, and this is like another topic we started to touch on a bit, but if you have deeper issues, like you can't properly detoxify, like let's say you have some methylation issues, which we all do to a degree, but some more than others, you've got more of a detox problem in your body than the average person, you're going to have a harder time when you have amalgam removal. It's just, how it is. So, just please take this information to heart if you're thinking that way, and take care of yourself well in advance of this process. Yep. Get some support. I would recommend, getting a hair analysis too, because that's going to help you see what your minerals are doing. And if you're already a poor detoxifier, we can tell. We can tell that, because you're not getting metals out, your body can't get them out. It's like, oof, maybe you just need some time to really spend moving in that direction there. So Anyway, that's a whole other topic probably for another day, but it's a big thing that can come up, so keep it in mind. And then we have a couple more, and then this is just basically not just what you eat, but how you eat and how much you eat. So food is going to be your fuel for energy when you have weak adrenal gland activity, and oftentimes these people have weak thyroid too, right? So those are your two main energy glands in the body, and when they are tired and not effective, where's your energy coming from? Your fuel.
Yep.
So you've got to fuel yourself with food, and a lot of times people aren't even eating enough to begin with. But when you're really adrenally exhausted, you actually need to eat more food to kind of keep you going. Also, when you don't have enough hormonal reserve to balance your blood sugar, which is the case in adrenal fatigue, you got to eat protein with your meals, you've got to eat a balance of good healthy fats and carbs, and you've got to eat throughout the day to keep your blood sugar stable, to kind of force it to stay stable through the timing of your eating.
Yep.
I personally do not recommend people with adrenal fatigue go low carb. That could be a dicey topic and upset people, but anyway, we definitely want to get lower carb than the typical standard American diet, because that's crazy, right? Everybody's just eating carbs, and they're all refined and crappy. But when you have weak adrenals, you need quick burning fuel. So, you need some of those starchy, complex carbohydrates, and oftentimes some amount of grain and maybe even legume is tolerated and good for these people. But if you're not doing grains or legumes, you've got to eat those starchy veggies and make sure you're getting that fuel for those glands. And then you don't want to push the glands with caffeine too much. It's interesting because I see a lot of people who have overactive, like, they have elevated cortisol and they're just the kind of go people, but as soon as you sit them down at the end of the day, they kind of like just pass out. They're so tired. Those are the people usually overdoing it with the caffeine because they have a tendency to want to keep going. They're just that stimulated person. They like to keep going, but underneath they're tired. So they have to drink a lot of caffeine, and that just makes the whole thing this big vicious cycle because it's very stimulating, and the adrenal glands actually need rest and nourishment, and the caffeine will just push you over the edge. I'm not saying you can't have any. I'm just saying, please, let's just be realistic here, and maybe just 1 cup or a little bit, and that's going to really be important. And I think that our culture perpetuates this. America runs on Dunkin', after all,
Yeah.
And Monster Energy drinks.
Oh, boy.
How did we get here?
I don't know.
So that's a little aside there, but that's important. And Jessica's talked a lot about that on her site. I have on mine, so we'll definitely share more specifics there. And then last but not least, and this is where it gets a little tricky because I don't like recommending supplements and everything unless I know really what someone is dealing with, and I don't want to be responsible for that. So I just want to share some key nutrients. We've talked about this before, but, when it comes to supplementation, we're just going to give you the biggies that are generally good for everyone and broad. So number 1, magnesium. Absolutely, totally important for overall health in general. Number 2, salt. Now, there are some cases where people need to not have too much salt, and those are your overstimulated adrenal folks who have like elevated sodium, that kind of thing. And they probably should, hold off on salt. But if you're the person who's totally drained, you're not the go, you crave salt badly, then yes, you're likely the person who needs that salt. It's essential for so many things. And typically, someone with adrenal exhaustion has low tissue sodium. And getting that salt in really helps them feel better. It's not what helps improve your sodium levels necessarily, which I think we don't understand well, but it will make you feel better because you just can't retain sodium in the tissues. So salt or the Soleil, which is basically that puts the salt in some water, let the water suck up as much salt as it can, and then you've got like this ionic salt solution that you can use. Mm-hmm. And that your body can kind of really utilize more quickly and rapidly, and often people feel really good with that. So that's a recommendation too. We did a whole podcast on Whole Food C. Please listen to that. The adrenal gland actually contains a high concentration of vitamin C compared to all of our other organs, and it's required for adrenal hormone production to begin with. So, and then whenever our adrenals have to respond to stress, vitamin C is released. So every time we are stressed, we basically are using up and losing any vitamin C we have. Mm-hmm. And we can't really store it. We can't really store much at all. So that's a biggie. And anyone can really benefit from getting some Whole Food C, a couple times a day in small amounts. And then last couple would be, often people in adrenal fatigue have poor digestion, so you want to learn about broad digestive support, maybe even just start with some enzymes or something to help you better digest your food, because usually that's impaired. Basic B complex, a really good whole food B complex to start, is a pretty fair recommendation for just about anyone. And then, we've covered adaptogens on our site quite a bit. That's a little bit more, that's probably a topic for another day. But if you want to start learning about that, check out some of the links to get going on that, because they can be extremely supportive. It's just hard to find the right ones for everybody. So I don't want to go into that too much, but if you have never heard about it, and you want to start looking at it or ask your practitioner, and that's another really great one. I feel like they've saved my life, honestly.
Yeah, I love them. I have a very soft spot in my heart for adaptogenic herbs.
Yep. I know. We've been talking about this for years, right?
Yeah.
So that's some basic support you can do to help overall. Now, everyone may have a little more that we can cover in a podcast, obviously, but, if you can start tackling some of those, that's going to really help you out a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, these are all things that every single person can implement, and you don't have to do them all at once. You could just go down the list. You could just pick one thing. Maybe you want to focus on sleep for a couple of weeks or for a month. Maybe that's your thing that you want to do to really create that new habit, that new sleep pattern for yourself. And then once you kind of have that mastered, then you could move on to choosing that relaxation thing or, doing some light to moderate exercise. Just try to implement like one thing at a time, and don't get overwhelmed with trying to feel like you have to do all of this at one time, or else you're going to be a failure. You can't. You're going to get so overwhelmed, and then you're not going to do any of it. So we want this to be actionable so that you can start to improve your health. And just even implementing one of these things can really make a profound difference in how you feel. So,
yeah. And some people need to do one before they actually can handle another. So let's say you're really relying on caffeine heavy. You might need some B complex vitamins and some adaptogens to give you enough energy so that you're like, I'm okay without that extra cup of coffee or whatever. So find the sequence that seems to make sense for you and see how that, because once you get off the caffeine, you probably will sleep better. Once you support your adrenals with nutrients, you should sleep better. And that's pretty important. So
I agree. Awesome. Well, I think we've covered a lot in today's episode. Actually, it went longer than we had anticipated, but this is really good information for people. Kind of this coupled with all of the other episodes that we've done on adrenal health really gives you kind of a full overview of the adrenals, why they're important, and then what we can actually do to help support them and heal them. So
right.
I think that's great.
Yeah. And, if you feel like you need more support and more clarity and more understanding on your unique biochemistry, we both recommend the HTMA. I mean, Jessica's been working on hers for a while, and obviously, that's something I work with clients on. And it's really huge because we see such a big overall adrenal function picture from an HTMA, and it really helps to support each person right where they're at. It includes all the heavy metal stuff. It includes all the key nutrients. And it's great because you can get a lot of clarity and kind of know. And the healing process can be very long for people, you know, so. And some
I'm going on 4 years, if that gives you any perspective. And I really have learned.
But you've improved along the way, you know.
Yes.
So there's definitely layers and stuff. But, you know, when you start to get a little ready for more depth, this is a great next step because it's more information than just a saliva test to get those few hormones. And so, you know, it can really work on this in a deeper way, in a broader way than any other test can. So it's a wonderful, and there's numerous markers for the adrenals in the hair test, and that comes out of the graph that you get from the results. So that's a whole lot of cool stuff too.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So anyway, we hope that you enjoyed this and learned something and have some takeaways to go away with, you know.
Absolutely. Yeah, we really appreciate you guys tuning in to our podcast every week. So thank you for listening. I guess we'll go ahead and sign off for now, and then we'll be back again next week. So we hope you have a great day.
Thank you so much for listening to the Vibrant Health Podcast. We really appreciate you taking time out of your day to listen to the information we're sharing. If this information resonated with you and you know others who could benefit from it, we would love it if you'd share it with them. We'd also be very appreciative if you could leave us a review on iTunes or Stitcher. If you're on our sites or YouTube listening to this, we'll have links down below where you can leave a review. If you're on your phone listening through the app, you can also leave a review directly through the app. It only takes about a minute, super fast, super easy, and your shares and reviews help us reach more people with our message of health and wellness. So we really, really appreciate your support. If you're looking for more information on health and wellness in general, both Lydia and I have a ton of information on our sites. You can find me over at jessicaespinoza.com, which is my main practice website and where I offer my 21-day sugar detox coaching. And in the future, I'm going to be offering nutritional therapy coaching as well. You can also find me on deliciousobsessions.com, which is my main real food and natural living website. You can find Lydia over at divinehealthfromtheinsideout.com, where she offers nutritional therapy consultations and hair tissue mineral analysis services for those who are ready to take their health to the next level. Lastly, if you have any suggestions for topics you'd like us to cover in future episodes, we would absolutely love to hear from you. We want these podcasts to be as informational and inspirational as possible, and we'd love to hear from you and understand exactly what you would like us to cover. You can email us or leave a comment below or even give us a shout out on social media. We both look forward to serving you and inspiring you to live the healthiest, happiest lives possible. Thanks for listening.